A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
All right, welcome into One Giant Step. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. Week 2 of the preseason is over. The Giants lose a game to the Houston Texans in what really was a game about the first half, because that was the dress rehearsal for most starters. Obviously, no John Runyon Jr. in this game, no Cordell Flott in this game. Bryce, before I kind of get your thoughts on, what matters, what doesn't, if you'll allow me, I gotta rip off a little bit of a rant, get a little hair off my chest, because whether it's arguing with friends or looking at Twitter and this, that, the other.
Go ahead.
I'm making a plea with the audience here on One Giant Step. Many of you are great Giant fans. I'm making a plea. I can't do this year. Not the podcast, not watching Giant games. I can't do this endless cherry-picking discussion where everybody has an either-or situation on this. We just witnessed, and go back and listen to all 5 of our recaps on One Giant Step, everywhere podcasts are available and free on the Audacy app. We just witnessed, Bryce, us understandably know the Giants are looking to move on from Daniel Jones at the end of the year. Okay, they tried to trade up in this past draft. It didn't happen. Okay, Daniel Jones is their guy. Guys, we have to stop with the look at this interception. Daniel Jones is an unplayable disaster. Or just look at this throw to Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones is awesome. How about it's both? And that's the story of Daniel Jones's career. And newsflash, probably going to be the story of 2024. Daniel Jones doesn't suck. Daniel Jones is not great. You're allowed to be in the middle, and long-term, that's not a recipe for success for the franchise, but that's exactly the kind of player he is. And that's exactly what the preseason told us. So if you walked away from yesterday's preseason game looking at that disastrous pick six, and that's exactly what it was, and Brian Dable admitted it, and that's what you take away from the game. And you take away from the game that down the field, Derek Stingley Jr. makes a great play on a ball. Sure, you would rather on the back shoulder. If that's the way you take it away, go, see, I'm right. Daniel Jones can't play. Well, good for you. You're never going to move off your stance. And honestly, what is the point of continuing to argue with people about that? Then just have that stance and understand that the organization's moving on at the end of the year. Like, we know this. So why are you going to you just cannot enjoy the games? You're not going to enjoy the year at all because how dare Daniel Jones take a snap for this team. And on the flip side, look at that throw to Malik Neighbors. Look at that throw to Darius Slayton. Daniel Jones clearly can make plays. We've seen him win a playoff game. But you also have to acknowledge the bad that you saw yesterday, too. It doesn't mean that Daniel Jones only needed an offensive line or a great wide receiver, which he now seemingly has. More on that in a second. To be very good. He's in the middle. He's a middle-of-the-road quarterback. Let's stop eating each other and fighting with each other and eating each other alive as Giants fans. I can't do 18 weeks of this horse crap all year. I can't do it. It sucks the joy out of Giant football. And all I want is joy. All I want is, I love my wife. I love my kids, but they're a freaking pain in the ass. And some of you listening have the same kind of deal. Maybe you hate your job. Maybe you hate your bosses. Maybe you hate your coworkers. Maybe you get annoyed by your family, your friends, and everything. But the one thing we can all agree on, if you're listening to this specific podcast, is for 18 weeks, really 17 of 18 weeks, and depending if we're lucky enough to get the playoffs, we get 3 hours every Sunday, Thursday, or Monday where we get to unite and watch our team play. In the 2024 season, do you want to try to enjoy the football games? Because there's going to be plenty of bad, and then there's going to be good. Or do you want to bitch and moan all season long about Daniel Jones and fight with each other about Daniel Jones and then have a whole fall pass by where you didn't even suck in and take in the other finer things about this team and what's building here? For the first time in a long time, I got to be honest with you, I love all our listeners. Met a couple of Javits on our Friday. Our fan base kind of sucks. And look at yourselves all in the mirror as a reason why. Just stop it. Stop it and just enjoy the freaking season and understand that Daniel Jones, it's not an either or thing. He's in the middle. Don't just cherry pick the bad. Don't just cherry pick the good. And that's it. And Saturday was a prime example of that. Bryce Gelman, how are you?
I'm doing well, Shaun. I'm surprised you didn't save that for tomorrow, for the show tomorrow. But I'm
on
glad
vacation.
There you go. Well, either way, all of us are now much more. I wouldn't say I would listen. I'm not going to say like smarter about the situation, but all of us are much more fortunate now that we got to hear that. We got that out of the way. I agree with you. I mean, I think that there's a lot on Twitter. There's a lot to be made. And Shaun, here's the thing. This isn't only coming from Giants fans. Like Giants fans are the only ones arguing this. I've got group chats with Bears fans texting, who's better than Daniel Jones realistically? Who isn't better than Daniel Jones? And they were coming up with a list of like 6 guys throughout the NFL who they think aren't better than, like, it's just like, it's right. Discourse everywhere. It isn't just with the Giants fans. We're kind of stuck with it because that's the situation that we deal with. And that is the current quarterback situation on the team that we all love so much. So I understand both sides of it. I see how people are getting all up in arms about the situation, but you hit the nail on the head. This is it. It's over. What is the point in losing our collective minds over a quarterback missing a throw and missing a throw there, making a rookie mistake before that? I get it. I understand that you want to sit here. You want to lose your mind over it. You want to analyze it in 50 different ways. But you're correct. Daniel Jones, and let me just dumb it down. Daniel Jones is mid. He's mid.
That's it.
That's it. That's who he is. Objectively mid. He's not someone that you could expect to go out there and lead this team to a playoff appearance. He's also at the same time not going to lose you 5 or 6 games this season. He's mid.
And we've seen both. Bryce, we've seen both. We saw the horrible of last year, that interception versus the Seahawks, and we saw him the year before. I thought the best offensive player on a team that also had Saquon Barkley and take you to the playoffs and, ultimately fizzled in the second round. Like, I can't. I see where this is going, and it's already there, and it's more people want to be right about Daniel Jones than they want to enjoy the Giants season, and it's kind of like a weird juxtaposition we're in. And it's sucking the life and the joy out of me for being a Giant fan this year because I see so much positive in this organization. Not everything's flawless. There's plenty of negative. I see the direction. I see the vision. And that doesn't mean I'm right. I'm wrong. It doesn't mean Joe Shane's ultimately going to be right or wrong. We hope he is. It doesn't mean Brian Dable's right or wrong all the time. We hope he is. But what are we going to do this all year long? Like, what does it change? Like, he's the quarterback of the team, and you're going to have good moments and you're going to have bad moments. And Saturday was a prime example of that. Now, before I get to like what I saw, good and bad, and the same thing with you, Bryce, let me just say this. The other argument about the Daniel Jones thing, if you're on the negative side, I have seen this pop up a bunch. I saw a bunch of messages about it, tweets about it. I know Twitter isn't the like end all be all. There's plenty of listeners here who don't even have Twitter, right? Why didn't the Giants bring in more competition for Daniel Jones and just hand him the job? Okay. Couple things here. First and foremost, they met with Russell Wilson. He flew here. Okay. And they painted whatever picture of Russell Wilson, and he opted to go to Pittsburgh. Let's not pretend the Giants weren't in on Russell Wilson. They were. All right. Secondly, you heard on Hard Knocks, Tyrod Taylor was their prime target. He didn't want to come back here. I don't blame him, because obviously he didn't like the way the DeVito stuff was handled. That's fine. And thirdly, I don't know, Bryce. I know it was only a $5 million deal, but everybody who hated Daniel Jones was very quick to point out Drew Lock's win versus the Eagles last year and say, oh, watch. What? Even Connor Hughes, who I love, watch. No, I think Drew Lock's got a chance to start on this team. So suddenly you see that Drew Lock is basically getting it, and I know he got hurt last week, gotten his ass kicked in training camp by Daniel Jones being so much more the superior quarterback to him that suddenly now you're moving the goalpost. That Drew Lock was that competition he wanted. If there ever was one and there wasn't, he lost anyway. So I just, enough. All right, now to the game, Bryce. Now to the game. Daniel Jones, I think we'll continue there before we start to talk about some of the other things. Microcosm of his career, all right? And let's just say, in year 6, Daniel Jones cannot be getting dragged to the ground for potential safety and just wing the ball out there for a pick 6. That is basically an inexcusable play for a rookie to make, and it's an inexcusable play for a 6-year veteran to make. And if that play happened in a regular season game, and that's how the Giants were behind the 8 ball, it is a remote throwing, TV smashing situation.
Yeah. Yep.
Can happen. Let's just start there before we get to interception number 2, before we get to positives about Daniel Jones. Where did you start with that pick?
Well, first off, his first throw of the game should have been a pick six as well. Let's not forget about that. Let's not forget that Daniel Jones
You're absolutely right.
Two balls yesterday that should have resulted in pick sixes. One did, the other one didn't. So that's two right there.
Great
I understand this is a preseason game. I understand this is his first game back since he tore his ACL.
Hasn't taken a hit on that neck or ACL since that day.
I understand that's also at the back of his mind. 6 goddamn years. This is the 6th year in the NFL. I don't want to hear rust. I don't want to hear he's not fully back up to speed. Again, he hasn't taken the hit. You don't make that mistake. You throw the ball away.
I agree.
How have you not learned that at this point in your career? Listen,
I agree.
I have not played much golf this summer. And when I do pick up the club, I 100% am rusty. But I won't make the same mistakes that I'd make. It's not like, okay, listen, I understand if he misses a throw. Or if his read isn't there, he decides to force a ball. I get it. I understand. That's rust. What happened in the end zone was not rust. That's not something that you just forget over time. That's not something that just because you're not getting as many reps, you don't know what to do in that situation. It means that you, in that situation, you don't take the sack. Okay, I understand. You don't want to give up the 2 points. Roll out of the pocket. If you're out of the pocket, throw it over your receiver's head. Don't lob it right at him. It was just like, it was so frustrating to watch in real time. It was almost like a joke. I had to laugh it off, Shaun. I couldn't sit there and seriously create a take in that moment. It was just like, yep, this is year 6, and this guy is still looking as flustered as he did yesterday.
Extremely frustrating. So obviously that's how the game starts. Then we get to interception number 2, the actual interception number 2. It's a great play by Derek Stingley. Look, the ball should be on the back shoulder. More on that in a second. They're driving down the field. It's a drive killer, right? Somebody picks off a pass as you're, come within the end zone. The offense is feeling all the momentum. That sucks the life out of an offense when something like that happens. It's far less egregious than the pick six that happens in the end zone because, again, great players can make great plays. And Derek Stingley did make a very good play on there, but the ball isn't where it needs to be. So he's not absolved from that by any means. That is a play, though. That's not necessarily a let me smash the TV moment the way the pick six is. That is a throw and an interception I've seen every quarterback in the NFL make. It's a disheartening moment if it's a regular season game where you're driving down to score. But again, can happen. It's definitely compounded by the first pick six, but nonetheless, less egregious, still can happen. But at least, not that any interception is acceptable. And this certainly wasn't like a tip ball up in the air where something weird happened, interception. But I will accept this interception from this standpoint. He was being aggressive, and that is something that we want Daniel Jones to be. And newsflash, a more aggressive offense where you're really trying to throw the ball down the seam to these fast wide receivers is going to result in interceptions like that, and that sucks. Brett Favre made a living that way. Peyton Manning made a living that way. Neither of those guys are Daniel Jones, clearly, but I'm just saying that there, not to give you the positive. It's an interception that sucks, but I've seen it before with other great quarterbacks.
I feel like Hyatt could have made more of a play at the ball.
I'm glad you said that, Bryce.
Dump him out,
I actually had a disagreement with a couple friends via text message who are anti-Daniel Jones, shocker. And I said that, and I was shot down so confidently that when I went back and rewatched, I still felt it, but I didn't see a lot of chatter on that. I'm like, maybe I'm just being like biased with my eyes because I'm glad you picked up on that.
He could have jumped out in front of the ball. Like
fought back a little bit. Fought back.
Yeah, I understand that the route got jumped by objectively a top 10 corner in the league, but at the same time, you can make a play at the ball. Like right. even push him out, like do something, make a play. I understand it. Then the other part of it is that Daniel Jones, whether it be back shoulder or front shoulder, whatever, he should have lobbed the ball. He could have gotten a little bit more air under it. It's Jalen Hyatt we're talking about. That's where he makes his bread and butter is on the deep ball. Why are you throwing it to? There's even a chance that Stingley could get that ball.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and that's obviously the big time negatives. If you only want to hear negative Daniel Jones talk, I'm going to suggest that you stop the podcast right now and come back next week. So thanks for subscribing and listening to One Giant Step because I'm about to give you some positives.
Yeah.
Okay. Because believe it or not, there were a lot of positives. They didn't stick out as egregiously as the negatives, understandably so. When you throw a pick six like that, nothing is going to top that. But here is the deal, and let's rattle off a couple right off the bat. Bryce, I believe last week leading in to one Giant step, or leading into this preseason game, we discussed the three things we wanted to see in this game, okay? And a big one you and I highlighted was, I want to see Daniel Jones take a shot down the field. And I think my quote was, it doesn't even have to be completed. It could even be intercepted. I just want to see that what they're working on in practice is attempted in the game. Man, you guys can tell me the ball was underthrown. I mean, this is the other thing, too. Whenever there's a good play, well, it's not the perfectly thrown pass. You can tell me it wasn't thrown perfectly. You could tell me about this and the other thing. That throw to Darius Slayton, streaking down the left sideline, is 50 yards in the air by the time Daniel Jones drops back, and it is completed to Slayton. It sets up the Devin Singletary run. Yeah, I understand some Texans backups were in at that point, and that's where everybody else is going to point to. Ooh. Dude, that's the Giants starting offensive line up there without John Runyon Jr. And Daniel Jones unleashed a ball 50 yards down the sideline and found Darius Slayton. I found what I was looking for in the they're going to attempt to take shots, and Daniel Jones knows he can. And Daniel Jones just gave himself the confidence he can. That was a big-time positive for me, Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, when that play happened, and I am going to play the devil's advocate there. Like, he did kind of underthrow him. Like, it could have been a perfect ball. He should have scored in the play.
All right, fine.
Listen, if we're going to call out as negative, here's the thing. If we're going to give him his flowers, we have to at least, paint the correct picture here. And that is, it could have been a better ball. It's a good sign that he went deep. It's a good sign that connection between him and Darius Slayton is still there.
Can I stop you for a second, though? Can I stop you for a second? Because now this is where I'm going to get annoyed. I'm going to go with you that it could have been a better ball. That is also not a ball that would have or could have been intercepted either. Darius Slayton made the right play on it. Okay, so the ball is where it needs to be. Fine. It wasn't extended a little bit more. I'm fine with that ball. I really am. I understand that it's not a perfect ball. 50 yards down the sideline, where in a spot where basically only Slayton should catch it, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to cherry pick that.
It is a throw that all NFL quarterbacks should be able to make. Every single rostered quarterback in the league should be able to make that throw.
Okay, but the negative Daniel Jones people want to tell you that he can't make that play. So
I know. So he did. He did. And we've seen it in the past. I mean, but when the offensive line is at least somewhat more competent than what they were last year. I mean, Daniel Jones was taking deep shots every game. And specifically to Darius Slayton. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. I think Slayton's going to eventually play a lot over Hyatt. I think as quick as Hyatt is, as much as the Giants would like to see Jalen Hyatt develop into this freak athlete, this freak threat downfield, I think that Daniel Jones is more of a rapport with Darius Slayton. I think that's going to be – I mean, I just think –
And injuries happen, though, dude. Injuries happen. Like,
yeah.
And they
I definitely think so. But yeah, I mean, the throw was solid. Daniel Jones made some good throws, some solid throws to Malik Neighbors. I mean, Neighbors is
that's the other part I was going to get to with Daniel.
I know. I'll lead us right into that because I know you said that. And I don't. You could address this here. You could address it wherever. I know you tweeted about it, but you think that Neighbors is a better receiver than Garrett Wilson. You said that before we even watched one game. Not even a preseason game, no games.
Yeah.
I think after watching what I saw, I'd go as far to say that Neighbors might already be a top 10 to 15 receiver in the league. I would not say that he's better than Garrett Wilson already.
Okay, so this ties back to the Daniel Jones. Hey, when Malik Neighbors was drafted, the other thing was, well, who's going to throw him the ball? He's have a quarterback who throw him the ball. Pretty obviously, Daniel Jones could throw Malik Neighbors the ball. And the best part about Daniel Jones, if you hate him and you hate his inaccuracies and all of that, is guess what? Malik Neighbors just goes up and gets balls. Like that play that he made at the end of the first half was unbelievable. He is everywhere and anywhere on the field. And all the crying, anybody who was pro Saquon Barkley about what's the Giants' identity going to be. The Giants' identity is Malik Neighbors on offense, 100%. And those other guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, and you alluded to Jalen Hyatt, they're all going to fit around it. That show that Jones and Neighbors, for good or for bad, put on, we're going to see that all year. And if that's there, and the defense, by the way, which we're barely talking about on this podcast, can give you an effort like they had versus C.J. Stroud, the starting offense, and then Case Keenum and company, like The Giants are going to be competitive this year because Malik Neighbors gives them the ability to be like a modern day offense where like at any point he's just going to make a big play to keep the chains going. How many drives would stall where the offensive line stunk or they didn't have a go-to receiver, Bryce, in the past couple of years that now, and we saw it on third downs in this preseason game, are going to be continued because Neighbors is that good and that special.
Shaun, and I don't want to jump ahead of the conversation here, and I don't want to jump the gun here. No matter what happens with Daniel Jones, I think yesterday proved to me that the situation, and again, also, no matter what happens this year, I think the jobs of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are safe. Again, no matter what happens. But I think after watching what we watched yesterday, whoever the quarterback is going to be next is going to be entering a pretty solid situation, a situation in which you got a number one receiver, you've got two solid wide receiver twos, wide receiver threes, some deep threats, a competent offensive line. That is the biggest takeaway I had. The biggest positive is how good the offensive line looked. Carmen Bricillo is the real MVP of this team thus far. And the guys they brought in, of course, to replace whoever they had last season. But it's just like there cannot be a situation in which they are forced to play Evan Neal. They're forced to play any of these backups. Aaron Stinney did a pretty good job yesterday filling in for Runyon. That's a great sign.
Think about that. Right, that's their depth. They haven't had depth. They have depth. We said last week some of those guys like Mayfield and Judas or Kudas or whatever, Kubas. These guys on the like you saw them play versus Lions backups. Like it seems silly, but you can see the coaching difference. The offensive line just does not look completely lost. And the biggest thing that Daniel Jones had to go out there, and yes, I know the Texans, they stayed out there after the Texans' second pass rush came up, but the first pass rush was held up great with the Giant O-line, all right? Jermaine Illuminor, right tackle, for $7 million a year, might be a steal in free agency. It does have, and this is the point. The Giants didn't need all-world offensive linemen. Andrew Thomas is that at left tackle. They just needed functionable, man. They were unfunctionable, and you could not run an offense no matter who the quarterback was. Now you're seeing Daniel Jones could continue to be that mid quarterback with mind-numbing errors, but also have the ability to make plays because he has a guy like Malik Neighbors and he has the confidence in the O-line in front of him, which he did. That offensive line, the starting unit, the backups, all solid across the board. We didn't even get a taste of John Runyon Jr. yet. This is what actually excites me. No matter what the ceiling ultimately ends up being or what the win total gets, I know that I'm going to sit down this year every Sunday watching a team that at least has the ability to offensively to not sit there and make you scratch your head. Like they should not be having those games anymore where you're like, man, is 16 points going to be enough? Like the team should be able to score 24 points a game just by the sheer nature of the offensive line being functional and having a stud like Malik Neighbors on there, Bryce. So you're right. Offensive line to me, biggest takeaway above anything. They leave on a high note there. No question about it. And Carmen Bricillo seems to be, kind of that magic elixir there. I can't wait to see Runyon with them as well. I'd like John Michael Schmitz only played 15 snaps. He's got to be a little better at center, although Schlottman came in and he was fine. The idea, I mean, this has been, right, the Giants for a decade. Bryce, you're how old? 26, 23, 22?
23.
How old are you?
23.
23. The Giants haven't had a really good offensive line since you were 13 years old. I mean, think about that. Like, it feels like this is going to be the best Giants offensive line in a decade. Like, now that's not a high bar to pass, but that's what it feels like we're about to embark on.
I agree 100%. I concur completely. I just, the one silver lining in all this is like the pass protection was really good. Devin Singletary had 10 rushes for 20 yards. And that may be on Singletary, that may be on the offensive line, but you'd like to see, especially when Runyon is back, you'd like to see more than that. You'd like to see more. I get it. I understand. I will take whatever we could get in terms of pass protection. If the run blocking isn't as good as the pass, whatever, it is what it is. I'll take whatever I could get. The Giants have had issues getting sacked left and right. Saquon has had success. But even when Saquon was having success, Daniel Jones is getting sacked 5 to 6 times a game. So I'll take whatever I could get. And again, it's a preseason game. I'm not going to look too far into it, but that is the case. And that is the silver lining in all this, that happened. So I'm just putting it out there. It's not a take. I'm not contriving an argument here. I'm just saying that's objectively what happened.
So that's the next thing that I think we're going to get to a point this season where I do trust the coaches, but I hope they're not stubborn on. I think that it's going to become evidently clear that Tyrone Tracy is the better, more explosive running back on this team than Devin Singletary is. And granted, Tracy was obviously not available. We're very fortunate that ended up being a low ankle sprain. Yeah, all signs, if he's already working on the side, would tell me he's probably ready on opening day. And look, in this league, you got to be able to pass protect as a rookie and figure that all out. But I do think that whether it happens due to an injury, hopefully not, or whatever, we are going to basically have a conversation. Hey, Tyrone Tracy needs to be taking running back 1 snaps from Devin Singletary, maybe more into it. I do think overall it's going to be a running back by committee, but like Singletary's just a solid vet.
Yep.
Nothing flashy. I think you will have explosive plays from Tyrone Tracy that will supplement it. And honestly, if Tracy was healthy, maybe we would have saw more of that. Maybe he would have split into some of those running back run reps. But I'm kind of with you on Singletary. Just a couple other ones though, dude. Mike and McFadden. I hope that's not a long-term thing.
Yeah.
I am done in NFL preseason and training camp assuming that card offs mean disaster, because we've been trained our whole lives to assume that when you're carded off a field, like there could be a season ender there. The Tyrone Tracy thing, not a problem. I mean, the Giants have had a couple of these moments, whether it's dehydration or whatever, between players at camp carted off on the field. It looks like it's a hip thing for Mike McFadden. It doesn't, at least at the time taping this, it doesn't appear long-term unless I miss something like that. So I hope not, because they're already down Deontay Johnson right now. And McFadden, I actually thought very early before he got hurt, there was a couple plays where in there, you're like, okay, yes, the Mike McFadden tackling machine is back.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to see it, and you hope that he's ready. At least one of the two. Deontay Johnson, I know, with the ankle, or we'll see. I mean, hopefully one of the two is ready. If one of the two is ready, it is what it is. The other one will return, and good for whoever it is that returns first and gets to play. But I'm not looking too far into it. Again, you're right though. Like all this carding off of people, it's like it's getting a little too extreme. I get it, you're cautious, but if you got to put an air cast at a guy who's got an ankle sprain, then. Well, like, what's next? Like, some guy gets the wind knocked out of him. You're going to take him out. You're going to cart him off the field. Like,
yeah. All right. So this is where we're going to be at here on One Giant Step. All right. Saturday is going to be the Giants-Jets game. I am off to my final pre-football kind of getaway before the, we call it a grind. And I don't want to insult our audience out there, because most of you work far, far more important jobs in society than me, cracking jokes and talking sports on the radio for a living. But we basically, it's like a wink, wink. You can, but you can't take off during football season. So this is it. I'm going to be heading to Lake George with my family, enjoying that. I say that to say, I don't know if I personally, it's up to Bryce. He wants to do, we'll be on a full-blown preview pod that drops this week for the Jet game. Bryce can figure that out. I also say that to say, I would do some of that stuff now. We don't have any of the information here as we're taping this on Sunday, August 18th, but I would assume, and Bryce, I'm assuming you're with me, I don't care what the Jets do if they want to play Aaron Rodgers or their starters like they did last year versus the Giants. I've seen enough from Daniel Jones, the offensive line, Malik Neighbors, even the Giants defense, that they're going to get the one joint practice in with the Jets as well. Like, I'm good until week 1 now. I don't want to risk any more injuries. Hopefully McFadden's not long-term. I don't give a rat's ass how many starters the Jets play. So if the Giants choose to do that, look, I got to side with the coach. I hope they don't. And ultimately, from that standpoint, there shouldn't be too much to preview other than who's fighting for those last kind of roster spots. But, of course, we're going to tackle that in the coming weeks when they have the final cutdowns, too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I honestly have no idea what I'd even talk about, considering the fact that the way things are headed, the Giants probably won't be playing any starters, and maybe a couple. Maybe Dable says, Neighbors a rookie. He's got to play again. I don't know. I hope they don't start any one of their offensive line guys. Like, please. We've seen enough from them. Let them rest. Let them enjoy the game from the sidelines. I don't want to see an injury from Andrew Thomas or God forbid. Like that is the biggest worry that I have about these preseason games, and everyone's going down left and right. You don't want one of those next guys to be one of your main guys. So again, who cares? Jets play all their starters, whatever. Let them enjoy their spectacle. It's a home game for them. So their season ticket holders get to go and whatever, enjoy it preseason. Who cares? I'm with you. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I will be on WFAN for an hour, 45 minutes, a half an hour, 2 hours, depending on the length of Yankees-Rockies on Saturday afternoon, a 2 o'clock game. It's Old Timers Day. I will be the bridge between the Yankee game and that Giant-Jet game. So if you are looking for any morsel of preview, think of it being one giant step, but live ahead of Giants-Jets. Unless something crazy happens in the Yankee game and I got to do more of that. But you could catch me then. That'll be my return to the airwaves or after this podcast. From that, we will do a reaction podcast, whether it drops Sunday, Monday, whatever, following the Giant-Jet game. And then, that should correlate very quickly, I would assume, with the final cutdowns and maybe the waiver claims. And we'll kind of see how that Giant roster shapes up. And then before you know it, you're going to close your eyes. You're going to be sitting here in 2 weeks previewing Giants-Vikings week 1 of the regular season. Football's here. Your undercarriage is tickled. And I want to thank Bryce and thank me. Why? Because I'm an egotistical jerk. And thank all of you for taking one giant step with us.